Chris here. In this video, I'm going to go over the rear derailleur on the Lectric XP 2.0. This is a 7-speed Shimano TOURNEY derailleur, and it's pretty common on a lot of different bikes. I'm going to explain what everything does on it and how you can fix certain problems that you might have. In the description below, I'll leave timestamps to different problems that I'm fixing in this video, and you can just skip ahead if you have a very specific problem that you just want to know how to fix that. So let's get to it. So first, some quick terminology. What you have over here is your rear shift cable. This is going all the way from the shifter down to the derailleur. This little back piece here is the cable housing. And then the cable comes through this piece right here, which is called the barrel adjuster. And then it comes right through and it's clamped in here with a little cinch bolt. Make it nice and tight. The other two key features are these two screws right here. This one on the left is your low limiter screw, and this one on the right is your high limiter screw. And then you also have this screw right here in the back, which is called the B screw, which tensions the spring for the entire derailleur. On this little basic Shimano TOURNEY derailleur, this B screw does not do a whole lot, so you won't have to mess with that. Towards the end of the video, I will go through a little demonstration of what that does, but for the most part, you don't really have to mess with this screw right here. So the first issue I'll go through is just to check and see if your derailleur is bent. So what you want to do for this is you want to shift into gear number 4. So it's right in the middle here. This way the chain line is as straight as possible in this middle 4th gear right here. And then what you want to do is look down, and your derailleur, these two pulleys that are right here, or these two wheels, should be straight in alignment. What tends to happen is that this can actually get bent in, even from shipping, or if this derailleur falls and this bends, or this gets hit on something. That's why they put this little steel protector on it to help keep that from happening, but it doesn't mean it won't. So before doing any adjustments, you want to make sure your derailleur is straight. If it looks like it's bent in a bit, you can try to just bend it out a little. But if it's really bent in this little silver piece right here, if it looks like this piece is bent in, you're probably going to want to take your bike down to a local bike shop and have them straighten. This piece is called your derailleur hanger, and this thing can take a special tool to straighten that back out. If it's really, really bad, you might need a new one. But hopefully, in order to do this whole video, your derailleur is pretty straight. So this next issue we're going to tackle, which is probably the most common, is if your chain is just kind of skipping around, like it's doing that kind of thing. Typically, the most common cause of this is that the cable has too little tension on it. It's stretched out a little bit. That's a pretty easy fix. You just want to grab your barrel adjuster right here, and we're going to turn it counterclockwise and to actually back it out. So this is going to tension the cable. And if you have it kind of chattery and skipping around, if you just tension it a little bit, it's going to align the derailleur so that it's much more even on here. So most of the time, if it's skipping around, the cable's just too loose, and you can just back out the barrel adjuster a little bit by turning it counterclockwise. There are some times though where your cable may be too tight, and you'll need to actually screw the barrel adjuster in a little bit. But most of the time, these cables stretch out. So you'll be backing this out a little bit. And that's a quick way to fix if your chain just simply is skipping around in a gear. This next issue we're going to fix is if your chain won't drop into the highest gear, the smallest gear. So you've pressed the thumb button into the highest gear, but it just simply won't go into that gear. What you want to do is come down here to this high limiter screw and just back this out a little bit. Try about half a turn to a whole turn, and then pedal this a little bit more and see if that'll jump in like mine just did. That's because I backed out this high limiter screw, so that's allowing the derailleur to come further towards me. And you don't want to back this out too far, or the derailleur could potentially come way too far towards me, and the chain can want to jump all the way off this gear. So just back this out a little bit at a time. Try it. Keep backing that out. try it. If it feels like you've backed this screw out quite a bit and it's still not working, the tension on the cable might be a little too tight. So you can try also screwing your barrel adjuster in just a little bit and see when that chain will want to jump down into this highest gear. This next issue will be if your chain does not want to go into the lowest gear, which is the biggest one on the back here. Like you've pushed the top part of your shifter, the bigger thumb, and it's just kind of doing that. It just doesn't quite seem to want to go into that gear. What we want to do now is come down here to this low limiter screw, and we're going to back that out a little ways and try pushing on your thumb shifter again and see if you can get it to go all the way up. So if it goes all the way up and it's still kind of chattery, try backing that screw out just a little bit more. See if that cleans it up. So now it sounds a bit better. The other thing that you can do, same kind of idea, if you've backed this screw out a good ways, so this is the left side screw down here, the low limiter, and you don't want to back this out too far, because what it's going to do then is tell the derailleur that it wants to go way past that gear and drop back down into here, which is not good. So anytime you're using these limiter screws, just a little bit at a time, we'll back those out and then try pedaling again, and it should sound pretty good. And the same kind of idea, if you've backed this screw out quite a bit and it still doesn't want to go into there, it's just staying in this gear, then probably the cable does not have enough tension on it. And what you want to do is go down to your barrel adjuster and you're going to turn this counterclockwise, and that's going to tension the cable a little bit and help the derailleur push the chain so that it goes all the way into this lowest gear. So now what I'm going to try to give you an example of is what these limiter screws are doing back here on the back end. So if you can see, I've shifted now, so I'm in my smallest gear in the back, which is your highest gear. And if I go over here to the right side screw, this is the high limiter. Now you can see I adjusted so that this thing's all nice and good. But if I want to mess with it, what this high limiter screw is actually doing is, if you look at the derailleur and I screw this in, you can see how it's actually pushing the derailleur towards the wheel because I'm tightening the limiter screw. So now if I left it this tight, the derailleur won't actually go any further than this. But I don't want that. I want it to come all the way over to this gear. So what I want to do while it's like this is I'm loosening it up so that this is in nice alignment with the pulley wheels right down here. Not too far this way and not too far that way. Straight is great. And here's another little quick example. So now I am in the lowest gear, which is the biggest one. And if I go over here to the low limiter screw and I tighten that, you can see it's not easy to do with one hand, but it's actually pushing the derailleur away from the wheel. And you can see the alignment here. Now the derailleur's too far away from the wheel. So I wouldn't want to leave it all tight like that. So I'm backing it back out until the derailleur is nice and straight right over this gear right here. So we want that nice and straight. Another good way to check your low limiter screw is to shift into your second lowest gear. So I'm in this gear right here. And now I'm going to shift from that gear into the lowest gear. And I want it to just jump smoothly into this lowest gear and not go past it. If it goes past it, this little limiter screw is too far out. If it doesn't go all the way into it, this little limiter screw is screwed too far in. So we want them just right. So both of these limiter screws are more of kind of a sensitivity adjustment, whereas the barrel adjuster on the back is actually tensioning and detensioning the cable itself. So this little guy. And it's really not even moving the cable at all. What you're doing is you're pushing this housing out or moving it in. And that in turn tensions the cable. And the last thing I'll just go over real quick is this screw right here. This is called your B screw. And this is tensioning the main spring of the derailleur. So if I screw this in more, technically what it's doing is it's pushing this derailleur out a little bit. So what it's doing is this space between the pulley wheel back here, you can adjust that a little bit. But I'll let you know on these Shimano TOURNEY derailleurs, this B screw doesn't do very much. On higher end derailleurs, it's pretty sensitive and you can really fine tune it. For the most part, I just wouldn't mess with this too much. Probably just leave it where it's at, because it, like I said, doesn't really do a whole lot, but that's what it actually does. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that helps so you can adjust your own rear derailleur. One thing I wanted to mention is I do all of this with a home repair stand right here. I'll leave a link in the description below. This is the Park Tool home repair stand. All of these repairs are going to be so much easier if you have a bike stand at home. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one.